Paul Mully was an executive producer and writer for Stargate, and he is making the argument that a hard reboot is the only way to move forwards with Stargate, or at very least, the way that he would do it. Welcome to the Tachyon Pulse podcast, part of the scitrek family.
The problem is the Canon is massive, right? It's massive.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
Over on Dial the Gate, the best channel, please, if you're not already a subscriber, go and check it out. If you're a Stargate fan, you've got to be a subscriber. But over on Dial the Gate, Paul Mully had an interview. And during that interview, he was asked, surely you want to defend Canon if we get a new show, right? You've got a vested interest in defending the work that you basically did. And Paul said, no.
I almost feel like you have to start with a bit of a blank slate in terms of the Canon because it's just too much baggage. It's just too much.
Actually, he's not the best person to make this argument because he actually thinks Canon would be a heavy weight around the necks of the new writers, and it would just be too much, too vast, too much stuff happened. Now, this is something we've spoken about a lot on this channel, that actually it's not that easy to do a continuation of a show like Stargate because so much did happen. Now, one way around that is make sure that whoever is the new showrunner, writer, whoever's in charge over at MGM Amazon is actually a fan, because the fans know the canon. Now, what we don't want is an Alex Kurtzman. We don't want somebody that is just using Stargate as a vehicle to progress their career, because that is where basically how you get new Trek. You basically get a mess. There are other problems, though, with bringing Stargate back as a straight-up continuation, in that we basically are now walking with gods. We are as powerful as the Asgard.
The Asgard and Anubis and
all the technology we had been given, what are the stakes?
Too much.
Yeah.
What are the stakes? What enemy is going to come up against us that we can't wipe out? Because whatever enemy it is has got to be more powerful than the Asgard. Because in theory, that's how powerful we now are. Now, fair enough, we have the Asgard knowledge. We may not have been able to use it all. How much of that technology will we have actually have replicated by this point? We don't know for sure. But we have the technology, we have the knowledge. So, yeah, whatever enemy we go up against is going to have to be significant. Now, I have suggested the Furlings as the enemy that should be in the first season. Bear with me. It's the one of the major races that we never really got to see. We know they were very advanced. My idea, I don't know why I did that. I keep doing that in videos, so I've got to stop it. My idea was basically that there was an offshoot of the Furlings who we know are peace-loving. And no, they're not the little Ewoks. That was just bloody O'Neill imagining them. But basically, there was an offshoot of the Furlings that wanted to wipe out the Goa'uld, wanted to genocide because they knew they were evil. And the Asgard actually trapped them using the Stargate, put them in like a mirror universe or something, trapped them using the Stargate. I was thinking about how Scotty put himself in the transporter in that Enterprise episode. He kept himself in the buffer, so he had survived, 100 years or whatever it was, and not day to day. Something like that. But then, as the Asgard were gone, they were able to escape. So the Furlings, these evil Furlings, returned. They're not necessarily evil, they just want things to be a certain way. Think about like Thanos from Marvel. He's not inherently evil, he's just got an ideology that the rest of us don't necessarily agree with, or definitely half of us wouldn't. So there are ways to do it, but it isn't easy. Now, a prequel or something like that would be easy. And that is one of the reasons why I think we get so many bloody prequels, because it allows writers and stuff to do something new, to bring new stories, but they don't have to worry too much about the canon. They can throw in the odd Easter egg here and there, but they're not going to step on any toes, really. They're not going to annoy anyone.
One of the things I don't like about, some of like Star Trek and Star Wars and a lot of these more recent sort of reiterations of it is they kind of tend to wallow in their own stuff. They don't move forward, especially Star Wars. Like I just, it drove me crazy when Star Wars started to kind of come back. And after the episodes 1, 2, and 3, which I pretend don't exist anyway, they didn't go forward.
I love this point about wallowing in their own stuff and Star Wars. How many times have you seen me, if you're a regular sci-trekker, complain that Star Wars is on bloody Tatooine again? It really is a problem. Stargate didn't do that in the spin-off shows. Stargate Atlantis was different. Stargate Universe was different. Very much in the way Star Trek originally did it as well, in that Star Trek had Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, kept trying to do things differently, even though you could argue Enterprise should never have been called the Enterprise, but they did. So J.J. Abrams redoing the Star Trek is a good example of this, where why did it have to be Kirk? Why did it have to be the Enterprise? Why do we have to have Strange New Worlds aboard the Enterprise? Why can't we see another series on another ship? It would be just as good. But filmmakers seem to be obsessed with focusing on what's popular and assuming that, well, it was popular once, it'll be popular again. I really wish they could just do what Paul is suggesting here. Move forwards, get some new story, get some new ideas, for God's sake. That is what we want. Now, the premise of Stargate is brilliant, so if they really wanted to do a new series and call it Stargate, because that would build up excitement or whatever and get a ready, or some fans already sort of thing, that's a bit lazy, but it is an easy way sort of to get bums in seats. And the premise is brilliant. But if they wanted to do a hard reboot, would I really be that gutted? At this point, I just want them to do something. But it has to be Stargate in some way. And for me, if they did something that was similar in style to Stargate, then yeah, I would be okay with it. Bring through the humour, bring through the way that we can relate to these characters and these stories. It would allow us to have something that was actually that we could believe and suspend disbelief as well, and believe that was real again. Because if they bring back the continuation and it is contemporary, basically in this timeline, set in 2025 sort of thing, the only logical thing is for the Stargate to be revealed to the public, for us to be using that technology on Earth, etc. So we would not be able to suspend that disbelief anymore. It would be more Star Trek than Stargate. On the Star Trek and Stargate point, I've always made the point that the more ships we had and the bigger the fleet we had, it did allow the story to expand, but it did become more like a sci-fi Star Trek sort of show rather than the Stargate show. One of the beautiful things about the early seasons of Stargate was that it was low tech, from our point of view at least, again, using our technology. It had to develop, and we had to start using Nakoda reactors and things like this as things went on, because you needed to then believe we could defeat these more powerful adversaries, that we could even defeat the Goa'uld initially. We had to have that technology to be able to do that. But for a new series, that does cause problems, because as I said, just what enemy are we going to have in the future that's going to be anything like as good? So, am I saying that we should have a hard reboot? God, no. I really hate the idea of doing a hard reboot, and history tells us they never work. Battlestar Galactica is literally, I think, the only example of this being effective and being actually really good. The Lost in Space series was good, but even that, I would say, wasn't exactly a rip-roaring success. So, some sort of continuation, however they want to do it. We need somebody that's a big fan. We need somebody that can actually think up a really clever way to bring Stargate back. It doesn't necessarily have to be like Stargate Command and a big thing. It could be a smaller story, a more focused story within the Stargate universe. It could be a prequel. The Ancients is basically screaming out for a TV series, and it could be one way to bring it back. We've also argued on this channel that you could do sort of multiple seasons doing different things, seeing different things from different perspectives. I'd like to see a Jaffa season and something else, maybe a Stargate SG-1 type season, but then something aboard, a new class of Daedalus or something. There are lots of ways you could bring this show back without it necessarily being SG-1. It's got to feel like Stargate, though. It's got to have the humour. It's got to have the adventure. It's got to have the excitement. It's got to avoid the trap that many sci-fi fall into nowadays, where it's got to be dark and gritty and real. We don't need that. We've got enough of that. Let's do something that's actually logical, sensible, thought through, all the things Star Trek isn't, and fun. It doesn't have to be colourful and bland and big CGI and all this sort of thing. Star Trek, don't do it anymore, just for the love of God. It can be subtle. That's what I think most gators want. So yeah, I'm really grateful for Paul Mully to share his opinion here. And actually, I agree with everything he said, because it's what we've been saying on the channel for 3 years. But my heart overrides my head on this. My head says hard reboot, but my heart says don't you dare. I just hope that Amazon are going to listen. Welcome to the Tachyon Pulse podcast, by the way, and please subscribe if you haven't already. It's a brand new channel. We're hitting 1,000 subscribers already, hopefully, and we want to grow even more. Also, don't forget to subscribe to scitrek, our sister channel. Go over also to patreon.com/scitrek, where most of our new videos do premiere first, and you get to see them without the adverts, you lucky bunnies. Go check it out. As always, please stay safe. Keep up the faith. It will return. And please, see you next time.